It's another episode of the Sherpa's Podcast Picks, coming to you from Sherpaloo Studios on Mount Podcastia. We'll be talking about podcasts for you to listen to, and it's all brought to you by our talented, charismatic host. Wait, he's not here? Oh, I guess you'll just have to settle for Jim the Podcast Sherpa instead.
Welcome to the Sherpa's Podcast Picks. It's the podcast about, podcasts. And now, coming to you from Mount Podcastia, here's your host who wonders what's on your podcast playlist, Jim the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpa Illusion, and welcome to the Sherpa's Podcast Picks. It is a presentation of me, Jim the Podcast Sherpa, coming to you from Sherpaloo Studios, here in the Sherpa Chalet, high atop Mount Podcastia, and where we overlook the millions and millions of podcasts that are out there. And I'm right here to give you an episode where we can get to talk about some of them. You know, I've been listening to so many podcasts, maybe almost too many podcasts. Get it? Well, maybe some of you won't get it, but the OG listeners will get that one anyway. I'm here today to give you a little mini episode. Unfortunately, some of the podcasters have gone into hiding. I have to hunt them out. Sometimes they're a little tricky to find with the snow on Mount Podcastia. You know how it is. I guess you can relate. But I have been listening to a bunch more of podcasts. A few weeks ago, I talked about 30 podcasts that I've been listening to. I got another 20 for you. How about that? What a bargain! What a bargain. And before I get started, I want to say to you, happy Mental Wealth Month. And what is Mental Wealth Month, you may be asking? I can tell you right here. And right now, it is brought to you by Magic Mind. And they have this product. It comes in a shot that you just shake it and you drink it. You can refrigerate it a little bit before you take it if you want. One that's good for the daytime and one that is really good for before you go to sleep. We'll talk a little bit about both of them. The first one is the Mental Performance Shot, and it's got 12 super ingredients that are clinically proven to give you a sharper mind, lower your stress, and give you a lot better energy. You know, you don't like going through the day with all that brain fog and everything like that. You're like, what day is this? Where am I? Where are my pants? You know, you don't want to have a life like that. You want to be sharp, focused, and be able to concentrate on the things and enjoy the things that you do during the course of the day. And that's where the Mental Performance Shot can help you. And in addition to the Mental Performance Shot, there is now the Magic Mind Sleep Performance Shot. And this is a blend of 11 ingredients, which will help you drift into a nice, deep, relaxing sleep. Non-habit forming. There's no melatonin in it. You just take it gradually and your body gets used to it and it absorbs it very quickly. Cool thing is, I didn't even realize this as I was looking at their website. It won't upset your stomach. You know, everything is very well dissolved. There are a lot of really great ingredients in it that are clinically proven to help you fall asleep and to relax. And by the way, the lemon chamomile flavor, love it. And I got to tell you, the other day, after a few days of taking it, I had such a great relaxing sleep. And I really feel that the Sleep Performance Shot deserves the credit for that. And even when I woke up, my eyes opened and I didn't feel like, oh, I got to get 20 more minutes, 3 more hours of sleep. Nothing like that. I was wide awake, ready to face the day. And then after that, you can even take the Magic Mind Mental Performance Shot. See, they got you covered both ways. So it's important to note that Magic Mind promises to use the world's best suppliers, and they require rigorous testing of every single ingredient that they use. And if you doubt the validity of those ingredients that are used in their products, you know what you can do? You can request certificates of analysis for any of the ingredients that are used in either of these performance shots. What other company does that? I don't know. Well, I'll tell you another thing about this company. They also, for every bottle that they sell, donate 5 cents to homeless foundations to help the homeless. This is an amazing company, right? And I'm here to tell you that if you would like to try the package deal, the 24-hour shot. What's the 24-hour shot? It's the Mental Performance Shot and the Sleep Performance Shot at a 45% off discount right here through me. All you need to do is go to www.magicmind.com/ and in capital letters, Sherpa, SHERPA, and then JAN, just all like one big word in capital letters. And that will give you your discount, and that will help kickstart your mental wealth challenge. And you can keep that challenge running all the way through December and beyond. Don't you feel like a superhero now? Great. And now I think it's time to talk about some Sherpa Samples. Okay, Rebels, it's time for some Sherpa Samples, and these are the podcasts that I've been checking out that I think that you may enjoy as well. And if there's a podcast that you like to listen to that you would like me to share with the other Rebels of the Sherpolution, you know what to do. Just reach out to me on social media at Sherpolution, or you can even email me at jimthepodcastsherpa@gmail.com. That's it. I gave away my email address. Oh no, here come the crazy letters. I've already got those ready. But let's move on to Sherpa Samples, shall we? The Headlines, which is a podcast presented by the New York Times. And of course, it is the headlines of the day and discussion of some of the topics that affect the nation and the world. And if you are into financial podcasts, there's Prof G Markets. Prof G, I believe, is a guy named Scott Galloway, and he's co-hosting the show with a guy named Ed Elson, and they obviously discuss all sorts of financial matters that are going on in the world and a lot about the stock market. So if that fascinates you, check that one out too. Legacy was one that I checked out, which takes a really interesting approach on history. It takes a look back on certain people in history. They could be writers, performers, whomever, and basically look over what their legacy was and is it a legacy worth remembering. And the podcast that I checked out, they spoke about Charles Dickens and should we really honor his legacy. Brooke and Jeffrey, second date update. Brooke and Jeffrey are actually a radio show. I don't know where exactly they are. I want to say California, but I'm not sure. And they have little podcasts that correlate to some of the bits that they do on their radio show. So one is they get the details of people meeting, and then they contact the other person to see if these people actually want to meet up again. The Problem Squared is hosted by Matt Parker and Beck Hill. They are, I believe they're British, maybe Australian. I'm not sure. They may actually be Australians living in Britain or Brits living in Australia, or I don't know, people from Brooklyn who just have weird accents. And they actually talk about a lot of different questions. Like the one that I listened to was, if you were to audition for an orchestra, what would be the best instrument to play? I won't answer that question. You'll have to check out the podcast yourself. Unexplainable, it talks about obviously unexplainable things, kind of related to the previous podcast. And this one was about dieting and what diets are best for you. But it's kind of weird because the episode that I listened to referred to the podcast Today Explained. So how could you be unexplainable and you use Today Explained? I think that becomes unexplainable, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I feel better now. The Daily Blade is actually a religious podcast. And if you want your daily dose of spirituality, there's a podcast for you to check out. You know, I always thought it was maybe like about ninjas or something like that. But no, they say keep your blade sharp. And, you know, I guess, you know, how to protect yourself and be strong. Have you guys checked out the TV show Severance that is on Apple TV Plus? I've never seen an episode of it. It looks really interesting. I keep deciding, do I want to see it? Do I not want to see it? Definitely a unique type of TV show. There is now a Severance podcast, and it is hosted by Adam Scott, who stars in the show, and Ben Stiller, who I didn't know was one of the directors of the show. And they talk about episode by episode, and they talk with some of the cast members. So maybe if you are a fan of the show, you might want to check out the podcast as well. I ended up sampling a whole bunch of motivational podcasts as well while I was doing this segment. And it was really unintentional. They were just all kind of there on the charts, and they were begging to be listened to. So the Jamie Kern Lina podcast, she is an author and a motivational speaker, and her guest on this episode that I listened to was Mel Robbins, who's another self-help guru. And she's got this new way of thinking called Let Them. So if, you know, you want to listen to people who aren't funny doing podcasts, you let them. That's basically the gist of her theory there. I don't know how well it works. How to Be a Better Human is sponsored by TED, who sponsor all of the TED Talks. It is hosted by a comedian named Chris Duffy, and the episode I listened to has to do with changing your narrative to change you as a person. And Chris Duffy talks to all different people about how to become a better human. How can I do that? I don't know. Maybe improve my jokes or not. I don't know. Mick Unplugged is hosted by a guy named Mick Hunt, also a motivational speaker. Looks for positivity. He had an interview with a comedian named David Jolly, who is a comedian on the Kill Tony podcast, if you've ever listened to that. And also another motivational one that I listened to was called The Zurkie Show, Zurkie. I was a little confused because the cover art has a picture of a young boy, and I thought it was supposed to be a young boy. But it is not. Maybe it is the speaker as a young boy. We'll have to find out. If you want to be motivated, check out some of those podcasts. I also listened to some audio dramas, and one of them was Red Valley, which actually had to do with futuristic science. And you really have to hear the whole podcast episode to episode, and I really just checked out one episode of this. But it's really well done, really very well performed audio drama. If you like stuff like that with mystery and science fiction, this might be a podcast that you may want to listen to. Another one that I listened to was Brimstone Valley Mall. This was actually the final episode of this podcast, and it's the angels and demons kind of have a face-off in a local shopping mall. It is actually pretty funny, believe it or not. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a quirky kind of sense of humor that I enjoy. And if you've got a goofy sense of humor, maybe you might enjoy it as well. After Dark, Myths, Misdeeds, and the Paranormal. Obviously, they go into a lot of different stories. The episode that I checked out, they were talking about the Elephant Man, David Merrick, which is really one that wouldn't really fall under those categories, but I guess they did it as a special episode. It was really interesting. I didn't really know that much about his life. And if you've ever seen the movie is very dark and sad, but the episode that they presented made it very positive, and they were very actually emotional telling this story as well. Very uplifting. And of course, you're probably wondering, did I listen to some true crime? Of course I listened to some true crime. There was Gone South, which had to do with the murder of a Alabama college student named Catherine Foster in 1980. Monster, BLK, that is obviously about the BTK Killer who killed and tortured a bunch of people over the course of numerous years. And this talked about when this killer murdered members of the Otero family in Kansas. Murder on Songbird Road. This was a weird one, too. It was from a while back. About a woman allegedly murdering her stepdaughter, but she says that she did not murder her stepdaughter. She said that someone came in the house and killed her while she was in the bathroom. And it goes into the investigation of this case. And probably one of the more well-known murders within the last 20 or so years, I believe, was that of Lacey Peterson. And Murder, True Crime Stories had a 2-part episode about that episode, and it kind of goes into the relationship that she had with Scott Peterson and the type of person that he was. Lastly, I listened to Chloe in Wonderland, and the Chloe in question is Khloe Kardashian, and she's got a podcast now. And her guest was Scott Disick, who was also on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. He was her brother-in-law. He was married to her sister, Courtney. It figures that the Kardashians have more podcasts. The only thing that I would probably watch involving the Kardashians is what if the Vanderpump people and the Kardashian people have a cage match or something like that and see who comes out in the end. I would kind of give the edge to Khloe because she's kind of big and muscular and stuff like that. So, she may have the upper hand. And I think she was married to a basketball player or something like that, wasn't she? Something. Anyway, but she seems the most athletic. I would lay money on Khloe to win that fight. I don't know why I said that, but what the heck. Khloe, as far as the podcast was concerned, I'm not a huge Kardashian fan. Her honesty gets an A+. The relatability is a D-. There's talk about them going to Paris and staying at the Four Seasons and nannies. And, a lot of people don't really live like that. But, if you're excited by that kind of lifestyle, check it out, Chloe in Wonderland. And that'll do it for your 20 Sherpa Samples. And let's head into the outro.
Want to join the rebels of the Sherpalution? Follow us at Sherpalution on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky.
Thank you so much for spending a little time here on the Sherpa's Podcast Picks. And make sure you check out some of those podcasts. I think you'll like some of them. There's some really good ones in there. And also, don't forget to check out the link for Magic Mind if you want to sleep better and you want to be more focused in the daytime. That link is right there for you. It'll take you to where you need to go. Of course, you can follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all on Sherpalution. Now, I was on TikTok, and then TikTok went away, but TikTok came back, and I'm still on TikTok. And now my 14 followers on TikTok are mildly excited about that. Just figured I'd give you guys a shout out. And don't forget to check out our shows on Saturday, where we do Sherpa Selects, and it's my favorite episodes from seasons 1 through 6. And if you're listening on Saturday, it's Sherpa Selects, and it's one of my top 10 favorites. Comedian and author Steve Bluestein, really fun interview. He was great and interesting stuff too. So be sure to check it out. So until then, I say to you, Viva la Sherpalution!
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa's Podcast Picks. The podcast is now over. Please disperse and tell everyone about us. As long as they don't put us back in jail. Viva la Sherpalution!